Good morning. So let's put some energy into this and get this going. Thank you again, Whites and Gaming and Peter Mead and all of you here for having invited me to this. And I'll do the best I can to give you, a quick idea of what I think is going on technology-wise in the industry from a vendor perspective. Before I do that, I first want to convey my heartiest, sincerest congratulations to my good friend, Bob Luciano, who later this evening today is going to be elected into as the first Technology Hall of Fame inductee. It couldn't go to a more deserving person. A lot of us in gaming have made a little bit of difference by taking what there was and improving it. There are very few people in gaming who have actually created stuff out of nothing. And Bob Luciano is the top name in that. I don't want to go through all the details of his accomplishments and take the thunder away from Randy Hedrick, who is going to be introducing Bob Luciano later this evening. But I'll tell you, all these years in gaming, I've not come across anyone else who has that level of creativity, that level of energy, and that level of push to create something that is only an idea and nothing is there. And you can go through the class 2 casinos, you can go through class 3 gaming, you can go through operating systems that runs the games, you can go through WAP progressive games, a megabucks that still makes great revenue for IGT, contributions for IGT, contributions for Bally, contributions through his own company, Sierra Design Group, that he created in the late 90s. Just magnificent. And when you line up the people who have contributed technology-wise to gaming, he by far is a number one name. So very, very deserved recognition of all his accomplishments in gaming so far. And I feel very proud that I'm associated with him and I worked with him shoulder to shoulder. And if you think of Bally today being a reasonably successful company over the last few years, we have done reasonably well. One of the main reasons behind that is our acquisition of Bob Luciano's SDG company in the 2003-2004 timeframe. That has been one of the biggest reasons behind all the successes Bally has had for the last 8 years or so. So congratulations, Bob. All of us at Bally, all our 3,400 employees are very, very proud that Bob is being recognized today by your group. Now, the other news I also want to tell you is all technology is not good. Some technologies create more problems than they really solve. And one of them is telepresence. One lesson you learn as being a rookie CEO, and when you take over this kind of a job in your year one, the first rule people teach you is to avoid your board. So just stay away from your board of directors as much as you can and just go ahead with your work. But these days, technologies as telepresence, I can't escape from them. Everywhere I look, everywhere I turn, either they are in person or they are in video conference, or sometimes there is an equipment like that is just walking into your room with a board member talking to you. So not all technology works out well for when you take up new positions. So that's a warning. Sometimes you got to downplay these video conferences and telepresence conferences kind of technologies you get in companies so that you find out some way of hiding from your board as much as you can. Okay. Sal talked about how much it has changed so far, how much things have changed so far. One thing is certain, regardless of how much things have changed so far, they are changing at a faster pace now. And that pull that consumer technologies, those consumer technologies create, is a difficulty that all of us are dealing with in gaming. So regardless of how much resources we all have to push technology forward, there is no question that the pull from the consumer world is getting higher and higher. And that is one of those challenges we are all going to deal with. Because unlike consumer companies like an Apple or a Microsoft, the resources available with vendors like IGT or Bally or Aristocrat or Konami or people like that is much more limited. We don't have access to the kind of resources that Apple has. We don't have the kind of possibilities where we create a gadget and suddenly 14 million people buy that. It's just not going to happen. So within those limited resources, we got to pull gaming at a pace that our consumers, who are used to a much higher pace of technology change now, and we somehow have to bridge that gap together. Apple, Microsoft, Google, companies like this are pulling technology forward with tens of thousands of people in R&D. And here you have gaming vendors sitting in gaming who are trying to match that pace with a few hundred people in R&D. So that is going to be one of the most difficult challenges we continue to face. In my opinion, the only way you can really get over that challenge is to bypass certain pieces of technology. We can't keep pace with everything that happens in the consumer world, but you've got to figure out an intelligent way of jumping across a couple of those steps, where you bypass a couple of those steps so that you don't need to spend the limited resources we have on every change in technology that happens in the consumer world. That is going to be arguably the biggest challenge that all of us as vendors face in order to help our casino customers go through this technology curve. That's a huge challenge all of us are facing. Now, I will cover these 4 or 5 topics here very quickly. And just to give you a flavor of what is going on in the mind of a lot of our vendors. I mean, a lot of us vendors in this gaming industry. When you think of companies like Bally, IGT, Konami, Aristocrat and others, what exactly are we thinking about and where exactly are things moving? I'll try to give you a flavor of that as quickly as I can in the next 30 minutes or so. So let's start with this term server-based gaming. The reason why I use the term server-based gaming is because that is about the most comprehensive term that kind of encompasses a lot of things that are going on with games and with systems today. Now, before we go into the details of that, you look at the global casino revenue now, and you look at the US portion of the graph. The US revenue from casinos has pretty much reached the 2007 standards. Wherever we were in 2007, after a dip over a couple of years when the economy posed a lot of challenges, we are now back to the 2007 levels. However, we are back to those levels with a lot more supply. There are a lot more casinos now competing for the same consumer dollar, and there are a lot more slot machines in most places in order to grab that lot, and a lot more table games as well. So the level of revenue, aggregate revenue is back, but the level of competition is a heck of a lot tougher now. And of course, Asia is making huge strides forward in terms of pretty soon matching up to US revenue levels as well. So given that, what we vendors are focused in is providing better games, better content and better technology to help the casinos compete with each other better. So the casinos who are our customers, we are focused on giving them more content, better game content tools, and also better technology tools so that we can help our customers better compete in a very tough competitive environment. That's what we are focused on now. We recently held our 10th system user conference at the fabulous Mohegan Sun Resort. It's one of the best user conferences many people believe they have been to, and the customers made it so. I mean, the credit doesn't go to Bally. The credit goes to Mohegan Sun and all the customers who attended it, who made it a major conference. Now, before coming to that conference, we did a mini survey. Now, I don't know how statistically significant it is, but about 400 plus customer users attended that. And we did a survey of those customers before they came to the user conference. So one of the questions asked, what will bring players into your casinos in the future? What should we do to help you as a casino pull more players to your casino? And we allowed multiple answers. That is why you see the numbers in the slide adding up to a lot more than 100. So they were allowed to choose multiple answers. It is still all about game content. 77% of the respondents to that survey still said it is all about game content. You can do whatever you want with technology. It is really a matter of producing better games that our patrons enjoy a lot more. That's number one. And number 2 and 3 are more system-related functionality like tournaments, or running more web mobile tournaments for LAN-based tournament eligibility. So doing things that make it a little bit more community-based, that make it a little bit more fun, make it a little bit more competitive for the patrons. So it is about game content, and it is about providing marketing tools that just make it a little bit more interactive and competitive and fun for the patrons, is what the responses say. Now let's talk a little bit about server-based gaming, right? We talked about it a lot over the last 8 years or 7 years or so, ever since I've been in this industry since 2005. This talk about server-based gaming has been there. And we need to really look back at history and see why is it we didn't make too much progress with that. At least in my personal opinion, it is because we mixed up two paradigms. We mixed up the games part of server-based gaming with the systems part of server-based gaming, and we didn't have the clarity to differentiate between the two. There is a games portion of server-based gaming, where from a central controller you can download games and you can manage the configuration, and the management of those games can be done by a central controller. All the vendors, especially IGT, have made pretty good progress with this. The ability to have a central controller, whether that is SBX of IGT or Bally Command Center from Bally or WageNet from WMS, all those tools today follow the same G2S GSA standards, which is great news. Using that central controller, you will be able to manage games not only from that manufacturer, but from all other manufacturers as well. And the only reason why you are not able to do so today is just lack of resources. All the vendors have not had the resources to truly test their games with the other vendor's controller. That has been the only issue. Otherwise, the good news is all of us are proceeding in the same direction. All of us are using the same G2S, S2S protocols, so that regardless of the command console that you choose, you will be able to manage your whole floor with that. Pretty good progress. The two things that have come in the way of that progress have been lack of resources with the vendors and also lack of return on investment for the casinos. Just the fact you can control it with the command console by itself has not produced better ROI. It has not produced better ROI than what good game content can produce. So that is why this paradigm has got slowed down a bit. But the good news is this is proceeding pretty well. So from a slot management system, through the command console, using the information that the business intelligence tool gives you, you will be able to command and control your floor. On the reverse, once the game changes itself, that information can be sent back to your slot management system as well and create a good loop, a good mechanism for you to manage the floor. The technology is moving along well. It's a matter of finding the resources and the return on investment to actually make it more ubiquitous on the floors. A few customers are making very good use of it, but all the customers making use of it will take a little bit of time. But that's gone well. That is beginning to progress well now. Shifting to the systems part of server-based gaming. And in order to make good progress with server-based gaming, it's my opinion, you got to think of those as two different things. The server-based gaming games part comes from your games vendors, and the systems part of it comes from your systems vendor. Here, a lot of progress has been made in the last couple of years. A whole lot of floor-wide features driven by the systems vendor. And in the last 18 months or so, we really now understand what community-style events mean. Community-style events cannot be run just across games from one manufacturer. That is not the definition of community. Community should mean that it's got to run across games from most manufacturers, if not all manufacturers. Whether it is creation of casino loyalty, whether it is doing progressives and promotions, or whether it is targeting your marketing spend in a player-centric way, whatever your objectives are, you need to be able to do it floor-wide, regardless of who you buy your games from. There, the systems vendors have made a lot of progress in the last 18 months. There are a lot more server-based gaming, systems-based features available today than has ever been there. And in the last 18 months, this industry has made more progress than probably the previous 5 years combined. I'm going to do my best. It's one of the things I always tell myself when I do keynotes like this, that this is not a Bally selling kind of function at all today, right? But I can't help but make mention of a couple of products only to illustrate the functionality. So please don't take it as this guy is trying to push Bally products. I have no interest in that today. This is not a selling speech. And even if I sell, I know there are a couple of people, Claudia and Sal, will make sure they unsell it very quickly. So I'm not here to sell any products here. I'm just only stating it for illustration purposes. So things like the iView DM enabled virtual racing, where you can run a virtual race where patrons can choose a particular horse or a particular person or a particular NASCAR driver to win a race, and that can run floor wide. regardless of which game the player is playing on. Those kind of features are being put to very good use today. And today you could run slot tournaments across the floor. You could run slot tournaments regardless of whether that game supports a tournament feature or not. So features like that are available today. In fact, we have used these kinds of features to create world records at casinos like Pechanga in the West Coast and in Mohegan Sun in the East Coast. Today, slot tournaments are run across thousands of missions at the same time. We recently ran one at Mohegan across 1,600 games at the same time. And a couple of years back, we ran one in Pechanga in Southern California across 1,200 games. We recently ran virtual racing across 4,200 missions at the same time. So server-based gaming, systems-driven server-based gaming is really alive and doing very well now and is helping a lot of casinos generate much better revenue levels than otherwise possible. And more than generate revenue levels, it is able to create a lot more fun for the patrons who come there, who are able to compete with each other. And you don't need to go totally get completely new games in order to do that. If you have an old video game that is 10 years old, as long as it has a touch screen in one of the two screens, you are able to create a lot more fun for the players and then switch the game back to the normal mode like 5 minutes after you run a virtual racing or you run a DM tournament. And what is most heartening in the last 12 months is the return on investment stories are really beginning to come in. I mean, there is one story of a customer whose hotel and casino is like 3 to 5 miles away. Their hotel and their casino is a few miles away from each other. There was a time when they could only get 5% of their hotel, people who stayed in their hotels, to go to the casino. They started using some of these bonusing tools, server-based gaming and systems. Now they are able to get 60% of their hotel residents to actually visit their casino at least once. That's huge ROI. Now those kinds of stories, when somebody runs virtual racing and their revenue goes up by like 15, 20, 30%, is all very heartwarming. So even though the technology is a little bit difficult to implement and you got to go through the testing and make sure it's implemented well, the end results are very good. So server-based gaming on the system side, especially in the last 18 months, has made a heck of a lot of progress. Now let's talk a little bit about the present and the future as to what is coming up. Personalization of gaming experience is something that all of us vendors are involved in the labs today. So if you go to our labs, you will see us experimenting with biometric recognition. Now, one of the things that we have done internationally is we just went live in New Zealand with responsible gaming functionality, where people could, they call it voluntary pre-commitment there. You could actually go, a player could go register himself or herself and say that over the next month, I don't want to play for more than $1,000. So in the first 2 days, if they play $500 and if they lose $500, DM, the game window pops up with a warning screen that says, do you want to continue playing? So functionality like this is required in countries like New Zealand, Australia, and to a certain extent in Canada as well. And now systems have the functionality to do that. But the challenge is, you got to do it for non-carded players as well. It is one thing to do it for carded players because you know who that player is. But we are now under pressure to create technologies like that for non-carded players as well. And how do you bonus non-carded players? How do you give them the benefits of being a carded player without knowing who they are, without them having a card? So biometric recognition comes in very handy there. So there's a lot of experiments going on in the lab where biometric recognition of a player without knowing anything about the player. I mean, the classic example that my good friend Bruce Rowe always uses to explain this is, imagine going to a Starbucks where they have a bonusing scheme where every 7th coffee is free. And imagine you've gone there for 6 days, Monday through Saturday, and then you go there on a Sunday. The person there is a new employee, but the moment you go there and stand in front of the terminal, that person's screen turns green and the person says, sir, thank you, or madam, thank you for coming 7th consecutive day, here is a free coffee for you. And they have no idea who you are. Absolutely no idea who you are. But they know you have come for 7 consecutive times to buy coffee. So those kinds of features are being worked on now. In UC10, we demoed the digital wallet using mobile. where you can just use your device and go there and move credits to the game or move credits back to your mobile wallet from the game. So those technologies are making pretty good progress as well. We got to get through the regulatory hurdles and all that, but I'm happy to tell you that technology-wise, they're all making pretty good progress. So when the industry is ready for that, the technology will be ready there as well. And also it is moving towards personalizing the game more and more. Like we will reach a stage where you can change the symbols of the game yourself without changing any of the math behind it. So I could use a photograph that I like as a symbol. I could use the picture of my favorite pet there as a symbol in a game without changing anything else about the game. And that could just come from your mobile device. You could just take your mobile device near the game and the symbols of the game change to suit what you like. So those kinds of things are being experimented on now, and we're making pretty good progress with all of that. And age verification, right? Age verification is also going to be a very important part of biometric recognition. So there are a lot of technologies being experimented with, because as you go forward with interactive gaming, age verification is going to become a very important part of what we do, along with things like demographic information. Now, I understand there is a lot of controversy about Google Glass, especially in the state of Nevada now, and that is being worked through, but that is there in the future. I mean, things like augmented reality, having specialized glasses where you look at something, you get a lot of information about it, are all going to be here in the next few years. Whether we like it or not, the consumer technologies are going to push us forward. So we are experimenting with a lot of that stuff to see how best can we protect the state's interest and the casino's interest and the patron's interest, and also protect things like privacy using those technologies to good use, instead of always thinking of it as a negative thing which we want to avoid. At the moment, it's being avoided for good reasons, because we got to put a lot of precautionary steps into that before we bring those technologies to casinos. And augmented reality kind of technology features can play a pretty big role in operational excellence as well. Not just in terms of new promotions. You could use this kind of technology to just manage the casino better. For example, if you take a device and take a picture of a game which has something wrong with it, the training manual can just pop up there. It can pop up in English or Spanish or French, so that it can immediately tell the slot technician how to manage that particular issue with the slot machine. So it could be used for a lot of employee purposes as well, other than consumer-facing applications as well. So there's a lot of good use for these technologies, and what all the vendors are now involved in is making sure we run experiments in the lab, and so when we bring it to you, it is of real value to you. Like one of the things that is being worked on today is an ability to carry a game from a smoking area to a non-smoking area without having to lift that slot machine. So imagine you're playing a slot machine, your favorite one, in a non-smoking area, and you have reached a couple of levels of bonus there. Now you want to take a break for some reason. In your iPad, you can go take a picture of the game. That game is captured in your iPad. You go to another place, sit down, play that game for some time. In the meanwhile, that game is locked for you because you're a platinum player. And there is a feature in the system that if you're a platinum player, you can lock a game for 30 minutes. You go to another place for whatever reason, it could be for any reason, to take a break, in a coffee place, or go for a smoke break or whatever that is. You continue playing that game, and then when you come back, you transfer the game back from the iPad to the slot machine and continue playing there. So those kinds of features are being worked on now and will become a reality a few years from now. It's just a matter of how many years from now. It is only a matter of when, it is not a matter of if. Let's talk about a couple of general technologies for just a couple of minutes. Now, cloud-based technologies, all the vendors are making pretty good use of it now. IGT has done very good work with cloud-based technologies as far as downloading games go. Like you can keep all your game content, your HTTP server can actually be in the cloud, and through SBX or Bally Command Center or whatever the products are, from the cloud you will be able to download games to your floor. So IGT has done pioneering work in that. For us, interactive mobile technology, which we have in about 80 to 90 casinos today, we run it off the cloud. So each of us vendors are using the cloud where we feel it is appropriate. But the good news is The cloud technology infrastructure is making good progress with Amazon, Microsoft, Google kind of companies are pushing that forward, and we will use that infrastructure wherever appropriate, wherever it is possible to provide you the kind of service that you need from us. But there are some security concerns there. Before we really bring it down to the casino at a system player tracking level, we got to make sure there's database security and there are no privacy concerns, and there's a lot of things we have to make sure of before we really bring it to the casino floor as well. Along this path, we are also looking at where software as a service is applicable. Now, software as a service is much more difficult in gaming than it is in other industries for two reasons. One, because regulatory boundaries very often are around a casino. It could be just around a tribal jurisdiction, or it could be around a state, or sometimes it could be a group of states. When you have that kind of state boundaries, it is not very easy to do software as a service. That's one issue. The other issue is gaming technology is not a pure software play. It is always a combination of in-game hardware and software. Your in-game hardware in the game, like a SMIB or a GMU or an iView or a NextGen or a Sentinel-3, will have to constantly communicate with the slot system. In that kind of an environment, it is not easy to do software as a service. We just cannot take software to the cloud or to a central data center and just make it transaction based. It is not easy. It can be done, it is not easy. But software as a service has to be driven by customers. Technology wise, we can accommodate it quite easily, all the vendors. It is a matter of when customers are ready for it and when you see value for it. Now let's spend a little bit of time on the big topic today, right? Interact, which is where a lot of the discussions are today. And we will talk about mobile gaming, internet wagering, and a little bit of social gaming as well. So when you think of the overall piece, global wagering, they put it around 400 billion. And you reduce it by an order of magnitude is online wagering, about 30 to 40 billion. You reduce that by another order of magnitude, you reach social gaming, about 1.7 to 2 billion. So global wagering is about a $400 billion business. Online wagering, for all the talk about online wagering, is about 1/10 of that, or a little short of 1/10 of that. And then you reduce it by another 1/10, you reach social gaming. So that's kind of the market sizes of what we are dealing with today. And those are the three major pieces that we often think about. Now, as far as social gaming is concerned, they say there are about 170 to 200 million people today who are currently involved in social gaming, who today are participating in some form of social gaming. Each of them spend about, the average revenue per user is about $10. But the truth there is only about 3 million of that 173 million, roughly 2%, call it 3 to 4 million users of the 200 million users are actually spending money that you can make money with. The rest of them make use of the free features. So if you give me a certain amount of credits free, I make use of that, and then I'm done with it today. I will wait for it to reload tomorrow, and then I might spend some time playing on it tomorrow. But the people who use money to buy extra stuff, with which vendors and casinos can make some money with, is a very small percentage of those social players. Now that 2% of the players spend an average of $538 or so. So they are significant spenders. They are still less than the online wagering spender, where there the average revenue per user is about $700 plus. So 3 million of the social users are actually spending money compared to about 50 million in online wagering. So online wagering still seems like is going to be a lot more revenue generating than social gaming. That's how it seems like. There is also a theory that when online wagering becomes more prevalent, these 3 million or 4 million social gaming users might move there. There is also a theory that they may not move there. I was talking to the CTO of one of the leading gaming vendors recently, and he was telling me that his research has told him that these 3-4 million users in social gaming may not move to online wagering at all because their profiles are entirely different. So one theory says this 3 million users might merge with the 49 million. Another theory says they may not. Only time will tell. right? I don't want to speculate on that one way or the other. That just to give you a flavor of what is going on in social wagering versus online wagering. Now you compare the two, the big difference is one is unregulated, one is regulated. So online wagering is regulated while social gaming is unregulated, which means the speed of innovation will be higher in social gaming than it will be in online wagering. That's always something to keep in mind. Facebook is a big driver of social gaming, obviously, while there are multiple drivers of online wagering. But that's okay, because Facebook is so ubiquitous. When 1 billion people use a platform, it doesn't matter whether it's the only platform or not, right? So that is, social gaming is going to drive very fast because it is unregulated. So changes will happen at a much faster pace. The lifetime value of a player is much higher in online wagering than it is in social gaming. And there are no geographical boundaries in social gaming. There are geographical boundaries in online wagering that are going to put constraints there. But on one thing there is no doubt, mobile technology is going to be very important for both. Both social gaming and online wagering, bringing them to a mobile device is going to be very crucial in the future, no question about that. Now, this is again, a lot of slides that I'm using here have been borrowed from a lot of research studies, so I don't want to claim that, many of them are original. A lot of them have been taken from various research studies that various organizations like Pricewaterhouse, Morgan Stanley and others have done. Now, you can look at the statistics any way you want. Mobile gaming is on the rise. No question about it. I just read a stat yesterday that we now text more than we even make calls. And there are more cell phones today than people, and you can look at these numbers in 100 different ways. The fact of the matter is there is a heck of a lot of mobile usage today that we all need to get ready for. And more people are depending on that than they are depending on the bigger devices connected to the internet directly. So when you look at the mobile gaming market, a lot of it is in sports betting still. A lot of the betting that is done through a mobile device is in sports betting kind of areas. Gaming is picking up and lottery is also picking up. But the surprising fact is 52% of the time spent on mobile devices, or 52% of the players, use it for games, a lot more than even social networking. That is still very surprising to me, because I would still like to believe that people do a lot more social networking than they do games, but that's not what the data is showing. When you think of mobile gaming as a percentage of the total gaming yield, that is increasing. It is now reaching the 17% stage. So more and more of the total gaming yield is coming through mobile devices now. So it is very important that vendors like us continue the research on taking it more and more to the mobile device and making games and systems and everything else we do work well on mobile devices as well. One other thing we did during our recent user conferences, we did a few other surveys as well. And it is very clear that all casinos are getting ready for this interactive, one way or the other. Either they are getting ready for social gaming or they are getting ready for internet wagering, and many of them see their casinos being connected to social sites. So a huge majority of casinos are doing one thing or the other and getting ready for this new interactive world. And all of them agree, or a majority of them agree, that mobile devices, mobile wagering is going to become very important. The ability to either carry a slot machine on your mobile device or just play on a mobile device to start up is going to become very, very important. And casino floors are going to get connected to the web and mobile. When we ask the question, how effectively is your casino using social sites today as a marketing tool to attract, engage and retain customers, only 1/3 of the casinos are telling us now that they are really making pretty good use of this. 25 plus 7%, 1/3 of customers are saying, we think we are doing a pretty good job of using social sites to connect up for marketing purposes. The remaining 2/3 of them are not giving themselves very high marks. However, 2/3 of them firmly believe that they have to embrace social gaming, not so much for marketing, but for actually running games on social sites. So it is a very, very important topic among all our customers today. Ultimately though, we all have to get ready for bridging all these different channels. And we all have to get ready, instead of fighting the channels, figuring out a way of using the channels to help us create more revenue and profitability. And there is a lot of good use for recruiting new players, increasing our monetization, and a single view of the customer. There are a lot of things we can do better to make sure that we use each channel positively and not fight a channel. right? The channel is there to stay. There's nothing we can do to consumer technologies. They are there to stay. It's a matter of how we can use them. So now, what is Bally focused on? Bally as a vendor, what we are focused on when you think of our systems and interactive products, we are focused on bringing the whole thing together. How do we help you provide incentives to go online, to increase online play using that, to offer rewards to bring you back to the property, and then to help new card signups in the property, and then take you back to online? How do we connect that whole world together is what we are focused on as a vendor. So for us, we believe that the brick and mortar casinos are not going anywhere. We've had precedents. We've had retail. You can go to Amazon.com and buy anything you want, but the malls are still there. It's only about 8% of revenue for retail that comes from online, in spite of all the humongous revenue they do there. So brick and mortar casinos are there to stay. They are not going away anywhere. But you could use online, social, mobile to attract more customers to your brick and mortar casinos and recognize them as a customer even when they are outside your casino. That's what we are working towards. So when you look at the first step towards that is an iGaming platform. So the iGaming platform that vendors like Bally provide you today have an open architecture, which means you can buy an iGaming platform from a vendor and then choose any front end you want. You could choose table games from Shuffle. You could choose Winamax or on-game poker. You could choose your slot machines from any of the vendors there. And your iGaming platform will support all of them in the front end. And the crucial thing is you could use the iGaming platform so that you protect your player data. The mistake that a lot of European operators made is sharing their player data with their vendors. That's one thing casinos never want to do. So the iGaming platform is connected to the core systems in the back end. So your player tracking systems we have today are all being expanded to accommodate the mobile customer and also the iGaming customer. So for example, today we run Golden Nugget's free play poker site. Golden Nugget chose Winamax Poker as their poker platform, but it is connected to an iGaming platform, which in turn is connected to their back-end systems, using which they are able to make offers across both channels. They are able to make offers online to help their casinos. They're able to make offers in the casino and go online. Mohegan Sun's free play poker site uses on-game poker, but it is backed up by the same iGaming platform. So the iGaming platform provides you a mechanism of connecting the three worlds together with the core systems in the back end. So you put all this picture together, the iGaming platform has a PC lobby and a mobile lobby. And in the back end, they are connected to your core systems. So you could use this platform to make sure you think of the player as one player and the player thinks of you as one vendor. So the player has loyalty to you, your brand name, regardless of where they are playing, and you make sure you view the player as one, whether they are inside your four walls or not. Now that's the technology. Enabling that is what vendors like Bally are busy now, that one by one, a lot of casinos are beginning to use. And this integration is in its rudimentary form today. It's, you can do, you can sign up for cards here or cards there. You can view points here, points there. You can redeem points here or there. So a lot of rudimentary stuff is going on now, but that will become more and more sophisticated as we go along. So we see the three pieces as together. iGaming platform is an important piece. The mobile platform is an important piece. The core system is an important piece. And it's a matter of connecting those three together. Now the social EGM is also here to stay. Our first experiments with this have not been great so far, but we are going to continue with those experiments. That technology is probably a little bit ahead of its time, but we are going to continue experimenting with it. The EGM is going to have more and more social features in it. It is going to have features by which you do something special as a patron in an EGM. You will be able to post it to your Facebook page. You will be able to share it with your friends. You won a tournament, you will be able to share it with your friends in Facebook immediately. We are going to continue pushing that envelope, even though it has not produced much success so far. But that's the technology we are going to continue to push forward. And mobile wallet, we are very focused on. The ability to transfer credits to and from games just using your mobile device is a very important feature that we are going to continue to push forward in our technology. So the summary is bonusing is growing cross-channel, no question about it. It is no longer just about bonusing within the four walls of your casino. We got to do it cross-channel. We got to keep the patron loyal to the casino regardless of which channel the player is playing on. But let's be clear, game content is what is crucial amongst all this. Ultimately, it is game content that is going to drive return play. Whether it is online or whether it is in your casino, it is about making great games. There's no question about that. And the rest of the technologies will help that along. Fundamentally though, it is about single view of the player. As a casino, you got to figure out a way of making sure you're viewing the player as one and you're protecting your player data. You got to market to the player as one player, and you got to make sure that data is only yours and is not shared with the vendor, even if that vendor is Bally, because Bally has no business with player data. Our business is to help you manage your players better, and we don't want any access to the player data at all. So single view of the player and protection of player data is going to become very important. Let me touch on one last topic, and then if there is time, I'll take a couple of questions. As an industry, if I can leave you with one thought that I believe that all of us need to do a better job of. I sometimes feel like an outsider. I've been here for 8 years now in gaming, and because I spent a lot more time with systems and technology outside gaming, I have a little bit of an outsider look, and I'm sure people like Tom Beauchamp, who's here from Penn, a lot of us still have that viewpoint from outside of comparing the gaming industry with non-gaming. In order to keep up with the pressure of technology, in order to keep up with what the patrons want today, even if the people who spend money in casinos are people who are 45 years and older, even if they are 50 years and older, the 45, 50-year-old person today is very different than the 45, 50-year-old person 10 years ago. Even if it is not a matter of attracting young players, let's assume the young players don't have money. They're all building their families and paying off their college loans, and they're in the process of building up in life. They don't have the kind of money that a 45, 50-year-old has to play in a casino. Even if that be true, the 45, 50-year-old player of today is very different than 10 years ago. They are a lot more social savvy, lot more mobile savvy, lot more technology savvy. We got to get the industry ready for that. We are not going to do that without having the most talented people around. Ultimately, it is people who drive companies. Ultimately, people make companies great. Ultimately, people drive technologies. People make products great. Together as a community, we got to make sure that we figure out a way of attracting better talent. If there is one thing that really keeps me awake at night, as a person who is involved with one of your vendor companies, it is how do we create mechanisms to attract greater talent? How do we compete with the Silicon Valley, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston, Dallas, Austin? How do we compete with cities like this and attract talent to Las Vegas and Reno and Atlantic City and all the places where gaming is, where we all tend to have offices? That, I would say, is the single biggest challenge facing this industry as far as moving forward on the technology curve is concerned. I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you.